She almost died that night. My wife's ventilator went silent for 3 minutes because someone in power decided aesthetics mattered more than her breath. And the worst part? It wasn't an accident. It was deliberate, calculated, and signed off by the very person meant to protect the neighborhood. My name's Marcus, and I never thought I'd end up in a war with my HOA. I'm not some guy looking for drama. I'm an electrical engineer. I built medical-grade systems. I knew what I was doing. And yet in one evening, the president of our HOA, Colleen, managed to make me question everything. It started when the lights flickered and went dark. I was in my garage office checking logs. When I heard it, the hum of our backup generator cut out. Silence. Then a sharp beep. Upstairs, my wife Lena was on her bed, chest rising unevenly, the ventilator straining on battery power. Her inhales were shallow, shorter. I rushed up, heart pounding, praying the backup would hold. The grid was stable. My breakers were intact. That left one possibility: someone had tampered with the generator. My cameras were offline, disabled. That wasn't nature. That was a hand on my wires. And I knew exactly who had the keys to that lockbox, the HOA. The very next morning, as if on cue, Colleen showed up. Clipboard in hand, her blonde bob catching the morning sun, that smug little smirk plastered across her face. She stood on the edge of my mulch border like she owned the deed to my house. "We're issuing a removal order," she said flatly. "Your generator doesn't comply with visual uniformity." I stared at her, barely containing my fury. "That generator kept my wife alive last night. You cut it. You cut air." Her expression didn't even flicker. "Exemption lapsed. You failed to refile." I wanted to explode, but I forced my voice steady. "I designed this system at County Medical. It's up to code. I filed everything under your signature. I don't need your permission to keep my wife breathing." She tightened her grip on that clipboard but didn't answer. She walked away like it was just another fine to hand out. I stood there trembling, not from fear, but from rage. I called my brother Byron, a district court judge. He told me, "Document everything. Don't escalate. Do this right." So that's what I did. I rebuilt the locks, installed hidden cameras in the vines around the trellis, rerouted power through protected loops, so any future tampering would leave fingerprints. I wasn't just protecting Lena's breath. I was preparing for war. But Colleen didn't stop. Within 72 hours, I found a notice taped to my mailbox: final enforcement, $250 per day, until I dismantled the enclosure. No hearing, no appeal, just pure intimidation. I felt the walls closing in, and as I walked the neighborhood, I realized I wasn't alone. On Alia Circle, a woman's accessibility ramp had caution tape stretched across it. HOA said the wood stain didn't match her porch. Down Sycamore Court, a family had been forced to remove a chairlift after the father's stroke labeled visual obstruction. 3 households in less than 24 hours, all with medical exemptions. It hit me like a punch. This wasn't just about me. Colleen was pruning the neighborhood for her warped idea of beauty, and if people suffered, so be it. That night, sitting in the garden beside the quiet hum of the generator, I felt crushed. Lena was sleeping inside, chest rising with machine assistance, completely unaware of the war being fought outside. I remember whispering to myself, "Maybe I can't win this. Maybe I'm just making it worse." I questioned everything. Was I stubbornly holding on to something that would get us kicked out, fined, into bankruptcy? My wife's words still echoed from earlier that day. "I'm tired of this house." She meant the stress, the constant fear. And for a split second I almost gave in. But then I remembered the look on her face that night when the power cut, eyes wide, body trembling, air stolen from her. No, I couldn't give up. I promised her in the ICU that as long as I drew breath, she would too. I wasn't backing down. The turning point came when one of my hidden cameras caught a man crouching at the generator. Blue polo, Danforth Maintenance logo. No gloves, no tools, just his bare hands on my wiring. I triggered the pre-recorded voice alarm. "You are being recorded on a live feed monitored by law enforcement. Step away." He bolted like a kid caught stealing. That footage became my weapon. I carried it straight to the state licensing board. Their eyes widened. This contractor isn't licensed for electrical work. If the HOA authorized this, they're in violation of state code. For the first time in weeks, I felt the weight shift. And then came Terrence, the HOA treasurer, usually silent, meek, always trailing behind Colleen. One evening he knocked softly on my door. When I opened it, he stood there sweating, clutching a folder like it might save his life. Inside were 3 documents, blank vote logs proving no board decision had ever revoked my exemption. A memo written by Colleen ordering Danforth to enforce aesthetic compliance, and a maintenance log marking my address as completed 3 days before the blackout with only her initials. Terrence's voice was low. She acted alone. No votes, no authorization, just her. That was it. That was the smoking gun. And I knew exactly where to use it. The HOA's quarterly meeting moved to the community center because they expected a big turnout. Colleen thought people would rally behind her emergency bylaw motion to expand her power. She didn't realize they'd come to watch her burn. I walked in with my folder. Byron was there too, calm, steady, carrying extra copies of legal statutes like he was handing out church pamphlets. When public comment opened, I stood. "My name is Marcus Dwight, 512 Willow Bend," I said. "The HOA under President Durrett authorized unlicensed contractors to tamper with my wife's ventilator backup system. She nearly lost her life because someone thought aesthetics mattered more than oxygen." Gasps rippled. Colleen's lips thinned. I held up the cease work order from the city, the licensing board's investigation, and finally the memo she signed. Murmurs turned into whispers across the room. Colleen snapped, "You are misrepresenting internal procedures." But then Terrence rose. His voice trembled at first, then steadied. The board did not vote to revoke his exemption. There was no authorization for Danforth to touch his system. That was done unilaterally by President Durrett. Colleen spun toward him, eyes wide, but he continued louder now. "I've submitted the logs and memos to the state licensing board." And I gave my statement. The room erupted. Neighbors who had stayed quiet for months finally saw the truth right there in black and white. Byron stood next. "I am Judge Byron Dwight. For anyone who doubts the severity tampering with exempt medical systems is a violation of state law. I brought printed copies of the statute." Colleen's face drained of color. Sandra and Mike, the other board members, sat frozen like statues. Colleen reached for her gavel, tried to restore order, but no one cared anymore. The gavel was just a toy in her hand. "I motion to table the emergency bylaw," Sandra finally said, breaking her silence. Mike nodded. "Seconded." Colleen tried to shout over them, but the words died in her throat. The room no longer belonged to her. Neighbors began clapping, not loud at first, but steady, unified. For the first time, silence wasn't her shield. It was her downfall. Colleen pushed her chair back, muttered something about reconvening, and stormed off, heels clicking hollow across the floor. And just like that, it was over. The tyrant of Briar Glen Estates was done, stripped not by anger or violence, but by truth, evidence, and the courage of people finally refusing to stay silent. Never forget, this dignity doesn't need permission, and safety should never be up for a vote.